For those of you who know me, my name is Art Ziegelbaum. I'm the president of the Friends of the University of Nebraska State Museum. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Joel Sartore. As you can guess, there are many reasons I'd love to be Joel Sartore, and we'll find out a little more about that in a little bit. First, we have some business for the Friends. One thing I do want to do is, how was dinner? I want you to know that our good friends from Beacon Hills donated half the cost of that dinner. So if you have a chance, thank Ann McVeigh and stop by Beacon Hills. They've been very, very generous to us. I'd like to recognize a few people in the room. Susan Weller, our new museum director, who you will hear from in a little bit. We also have three, I almost said older directors. That's not what I meant. Previous directors, Priscilla Grew, James Estes, and John Janovi, who is also the new vice president of the Friends as of the end of this meeting. I want to recognize Joel Sartore, of course, and thank him for being here. I also want to, some other people, Ann Hubbard. Ann, are you here? A major donor and incredible supporter of the museum. John Carroll, you're here somewhere, director of the School of Natural Resources. Welcome. If you are a board member or a past board member or officer, please stand. These are the people who are working for you. Thank you very much. Now, the first thing we're going to do is we had two board members rotate off. One is Erin Colonna, who unfortunately is not here. She served on the board from 2013 to 2015, and we have a very nice plaque, which we will get to her. The other person is Lois Mayo. Lois, would you come up, please? Lois served on the board from 2010 to 2015. She was vice president from 2011 to 2012. She is an outstanding contributor, has always been a wonderful person to work with, and I'm sorry to see you go. We'll have to fix that. So I'm going to set this down and say thank you and congratulations. Another thing that I get to do, which is really nice, is the Friends give out two awards. The first award is the Tuttle Award, and it's given for outstanding contributions to the museum as a volunteer. This year's winner is John Winkesloss. Unfortunately, he could not be here, but I'm going to read his citation, and we will get him his award. Whereas Mr. Winkesloss has partnered with the museum's volunteer coordinator, Sarah Fate, to brainstorm and develop the calendar for the highly successful Investigate Second Saturday Science Lab program, has taken the initiative to organize the 2015 Saturday program, which has contributed to increased attendance at the museum, has helped develop a basic and diverse science program for children, which includes topics such as snowflake crystals, food chains, pond life, polymers, spiders, craters, and meteors, etc., has helped immerse children into active investigations through creation or science experiments, has committed time to be present at the 2015 events to help facilitate the activity with other museum volunteers and staff. Therefore, the Board of Directors of the Friends of the University of Nebraska State Museum resolved that Mr. John Winkesloss shall be awarded the Tuttle Award for meritorious service and dedication to the museum. I'm sorry he's not here, but we will get him his award. And now I'd like to invite a couple people up. I'd like to invite, what was your name again? Oh yeah, Mark Harris, would you come up, please? And Betty Anderson, would you come up? An award was established early on by the Friends in the honor of Betty Anderson, who helped create the Friends of the University of Nebraska State Museum. It's an award given to an outstanding museum employee. And I'm going to ask Betty to pass that award to the winner in just a moment. And to announce the winner, I'm going to hand the mic to Mark Harris.
Thank you. This is so strange. I feel like I should have Joel Sartore come over so I could speak into his chest mic. But Joel might take that in the way he shouldn't. In a minute, as he does most things, in a minute the Friends will present the Anderson Award for Meritorious Service to Sandy Mozo. And Sandy has worked at Ashfall Fossil Beds since it opened in 1991. And from the friends, you will hear a brief outline of why she is receiving this award, but it's also important that you hear a little bit more about Sandy before the official accolades. I've known Sandy for over 17 years, and through all that time, Sandy has consistently proven to be incredibly reliable and unfailingly cheerful. Nobody sends happier emails than Sandy Mozo. You can ask anyone. She's a beacon of positive energy. In 2013, Sandy was honored by the Nebraska Tourism Commission with the Certificate of Exceptional Frontline Customer Service. That is an extremely competitive statewide award. Sandy's high level of dedication to Ashfall is noticeable. She is widely respected and universally liked among the State Museum staff, faculty. And Sandy, for setting the bar in so many ways as both an employee and as a human being, on behalf of all the museum folks, I would like to thank you.
Sandy, can I have you come up, please? Make sure we give her the right award. It's that one right there. Okay. I'm going to read you the citation before we give it to Sandy. Whereas Ms. Sandy Mozo, Museum Store and Education Associate at Ashfall Fossil Beds, has performed extraordinary service with enthusiasm at the Ashfall State Historical Park for over 24 years since it opened. Has managed the Visitor Center's book and gift shop and handled the bookkeeping. Her keen eye for store purchasing and merchandising has made the gift shop a perpetual success story. Has dealt one-on-one with summer interns to ensure that all their living needs are met. Has provided educational training to students and adults in her friendly, adept manner. Has welcomed visitors with an unwavering positive attitude, sharing her love and knowledge of the area's plant and animal life, and serving as the outreach arm of the State Museum. Therefore, the Board of Directors of the Friends of the University of Nebraska State Museum resolve that Ms. Sandy Mozo be awarded the Anderson Award for meritorious service and dedication to the museum. Thank you very much. That's the best part of this job. I'd like to recognize some wonderful students. And these are the Graduate Student Research Award winners. One of them is not here tonight. Bien Wang is not here. Her award provided travel funds so that she could visit the American Museum of Natural History. And that's where she is tonight. Bien is a master's degree student of curator Dr. Ross Secord. She is examining changes through time in the geographic distribution and diets of Miocene rhinoceroses on the Great Plains. Bien has applied to several universities, including UNL, to pursue her PhD. Elizabeth Rocks is a PhD student. Can I have you stand? I think you're here. She's a PhD student of curator Dr. Scott Gardner. Scott, why don't you stand? Yeah. She is studying parasites of small mammals at the morphological and molecular levels. Friends funding helped pay for field and molecular components of her research. She hopes to continue her work in parasite biodiversity and systematics and further develop non-invasive endoparasite monitoring techniques. Thank you and congratulations. Now, having lived with a name like Ziegelbaum for so many years, you'd think I couldn't stumble over another one, but here it is. Augie Sigtaisakan. Did I say that close? Say it again. We're going to have a contest later. Thank you. He's another student of Dr. Gardner. He earned his master's degree at UNL studying the endoparasite diversity of a rodent family called Dipodidae. I'm in the School of Natural Resources. Which is gerbas and North American jumping mice. Friend funding enabled Augie to travel to the Museum of Southwestern Biology at the University of New Mexico to work on identifying the host group he studied for his master's thesis. Augie was born in the southwestern Gobi Desert in Mongolia. He is now working on his PhD under Dr. Gardner. Congratulations and thank you. Thank you very much, Scott. It's my pleasure to invite Mark Harris to please come back up.
Thank you. Student workers are, Sam, Cassie, where are you, first of all? Come on up. Student workers are the backbone of Morrill Hall operations, and tonight we have two outstanding student employees to recognize with the museum's Carpenter Award. On the wall near the front of the front desk hangs a plaque honoring these two and 6 other Carpenter Award winners going back to 2002. And we've had 8 winners in 14 years, so you can see this is not an easy award to win. This award is for longtime museum student employees with tremendous attributes and attitudes. The Carpenter Award officially states for demonstrating outstanding leadership, responsibility, and initiative during their public service in Morrill Hall. Samantha Hayek, on my immediate left, started here in 2012. Her UNL major is forensic science. And very quickly here, Sam proved to be a standout and was soon appointed to be the manager of the museum's Discovery Shop, where she has helped it thrive. Sam will be leaving us at some point to pursue a career with the FBI, hopefully, fingers crossed. I would consider it an honor if Sam were the one cuffing me if I ever committed a federal crime. Something to look forward to. So Sam, congratulations. You have been so great to work with, and you've been a tremendous positive force from the museum. So on behalf of everyone at the museum, thank you very much. I'll hand you your award in just a second. Cassandra Spala. You know, I've been saying her name wrong in my head for, I don't know, 6 years. It's spelled S-P-A-L-E, and I've never said it in front of her until luckily today I was making fun of the award with her, and she said, oh, well, please say my last name correctly. Thank you. Sam has been here since 2009. She started as a planetarium assistant, and she has excelled in a wide array of duties in the museum since then. Cassie is our jack of all trades. Her major was conservation biology, and not long ago, Cassie served in Costa Rica as a research assistant for 3 months, aiding in the conservation of sea turtles and teaching English to the local kids. Today, Cassie is a visitor services supervisor at the front desk, gift shop, and in the planetarium. Cassie, congratulations. It's always been a true pleasure working with you, and your efforts here have been a model for all student employees. So, Sam and Cassie, thank you very much.
Thank you very much and congratulations. As you can tell, there are really great people working here at the museum. And I think we're all very fortunate that they're led by a really remarkable person who we're just getting to know. I'd like to introduce again Dr. Susan Weller, the new director of the museum.
Thank you, Art. If I hold this close to my mouth, I will actually think it works. So I'm going to, oh, it's for the video. Oh, I see. Now I understand. So let me repeat. No. I would just like to say that it is such a privilege to have been selected to be the next director of the Nebraska State Museum. Definitely standing in the presence of 3 former directors, I'm feeling somewhat inadequate, very humble. This is such a marvelous museum, such great people, and being based in a university where we can contribute to the careers and lives of students, undergraduates and graduate students, with the help of the Friends, and also to inspire the next generation of scientists with our amazing exhibits and programs. It's really an honor to be before you tonight. And since I'm all that stands between you and our featured speaker, I will just close by saying we aspire to spark people's curiosity in the natural world, and we conserve it, preserve it for future generations. And we are very, very honored to have Joel Sartore's exhibit with us for the next few months to help us in this mission. So thank you for being here tonight.
Something I should point out, when Susan was at the Bell Museum in the University of Minnesota, that was number 24 amongst the university museums. She moved up to number 9. We are, in fact, number 2 in the Big Ten, and we're looking forward to Susan making us number 1. It's now a real pleasure. Nebraska is known for many accomplished and famous people. Among them, Joel Sartore has filled a unique role as a photographer, speaker, author, teacher, conservationist, National Geographic Fellow, contributor to the National Geographic magazine, and many other magazines. Joel cares passionately about life, all life, from the largest to the smallest creatures. He applies his considerable skill in making sure that we all understand the importance and value of all life on this amazing planet. His skills as a photographer, teacher, writer, and orator underpin his devotion. Quoting Joel, "It is a folly to think that we can destroy one species and ecosystem after another and not affect humanity. When we save species, we're actually saving ourselves." Joel lives here in Lincoln with his wife Kathy and their 3 children. Joel joins us tonight on the occasion of the opening of his exhibit, Photo Arc. You've had a preview. It opens officially to the public this Saturday. I am in awe of Joel and all that he has accomplished. It is indeed my pleasure to introduce Joel Sartore.
Thank you. I'll turn this on. Thank you. It's really nice to be here. There it is. There it is. I look around the room, I see a lot of people, like Mrs. Mayo. I remember her badgering me to come speak at the zoo school many years in a row, until I was finally out of town enough but I got a kick out of that, believe it or not. Who else is in the room? Cliff Hollistel, the picture out in the hallway of him being all serious, carving anything. That's the only time I've ever seen him be serious in my life. Who else is here? Well, let me think. Oh, my team. Team Photo Arc is here. You guys, could you please stand up? This is the team that brought you all these pictures. These people work on these pictures night and day. Night and day. Thank you. So Elena and Ingrid and Becca runs our office, and Carrie, they are the ones that have to. On these pictures you saw up in the exhibit, we start out, we put all these animals on black and white backgrounds, but the backgrounds aren't very clean after about 30 seconds if you're photographing ducks, if you know what I mean, like they get filthy. So we clean everything up in Photoshop in terms of getting the dirt and the poop and so forth out of the backdrops, but these guys are the ones that have to do all the work, so I really appreciate them being there. I thought we'd just launch in. If we could make it, you can't make it too dark, you won't be able to videotape anything, I guess, but we'll just start in and talk a little bit about what I do for National Geographic. I've been with them a long time, and 25 years now as a contractor. We're all contractors for them. And I got to tell you, I've come to this museum many times over the years for support. I've needed to photograph a specific something. I remember going to Thomas to photograph the passenger pigeon that's up in the exhibit, for example. These guys have very little time, very little time. I mean, like, their budget's been slashed. Everybody cares about football. They don't care about this place. But those of us in this room know how important this is. And the mission is what matters to the folks here. And so, Mark Harris, as twisted an individual as he is, he's a very good friend. And all these people that work here, just wonderful. And they always keep the mission in mind. And the fact that this building has survived intact with the Dolan murals, it is such a treasure Such a treasure. It's just an amazing place. So it's an honor to be here tonight. But I digress a little bit. Most of the time working for the Geographic, when we do a Q&A session, and we might have time tonight, I get asked one question over and over again. Have you ever come close to getting killed on assignment? One lady asked me if I ever had been killed on assignment, and I said, no, not quite yet, but I do moronic things all the time that get, like this bear, and by the way, the picture's exactly the same on either screen. Take your pick. It's the same. Look back and forth. This bear, he figured out that if he peeled the door back a little bit, he could get a tasty morsel inside because my van wouldn't start for an hour. He almost got it done. Or this bison, for a story on animal migrations, I thought it'd be a really brilliant idea to stick a flash right in his face off the back of a feed truck. And all he did is chase me under the truck, and he held me underneath there for about an hour. But I still shot because I'm a photographer. What are you going to do? In truth, in terms of being bitten or attacked, the only thing I've been bitten by so far are bugs, lots of insects. So this is up for a story on Alaska's North Slope, and it's just my feet covered in mosquitoes. And this is the result of a photographer who hadn't made a good picture in 3 days and was desperate for something to shoot. So I duct taped the cuffs of my pants so you can't see it, so the mosquitoes couldn't go up my legs, and just let my feet simmer for 20 minutes or so. And what was nice, it was the best picture I got in 6 months of working on the North Slope, for sure. And the director of photography gave me a coupon for a free pedicure once it ran. So that's good. That's good. The other question I get a lot is, how do you get a job with National Geographic? That's got to be pretty fun. Well, actually when you're in the field, it's drudgery, but my wife Kathy says you cannot tell people it's drudgery. They're here to hear how great it is, Joel. So just tell them how great it is. Well, sure. I mean, it is fun when things work out. And it's great tonight when I can talk about it. It is. Like I got to see Middle of Nowhere in Ainsworth, or you go downtown in Chester, Nebraska, when they have a pep rally, and the kids just put their instruments on Main Street because everybody's at the pep rally. There's nobody going to drive down the street. But I shoot pictures all the time, no matter what, just for fun. I shoot pictures constantly, all the time. That's all I do. I just think of things to shoot all the time. That's what I do. Even if I was no longer employed by anybody, I would still shoot pictures all the time. It's what I do. It's all I've done since I was about 18, 17 years old. For me, my lucky break for Geographic happened to come along because I had a sense of humor. And growing up here, I just started working for the Daily Nebraskan, where I applied 6 times before I finally got hired. And I just took the kind of pictures that I liked or thought were funny, and fortunately Geographic needed funny in their portfolio. They didn't have anybody that could do funny, and so they brought me on board, which was great. That's all right. That's good. So, I like working back here more than any place else in the world because we have a lot of weird stuff going on out here. These are the Chippendale dancers at Wayne. They're supposed to be like the Chippendales, but they drink a lot more beer. And so I've just kind of come along shooting the kind of pictures that pleased me, and fortunately Geographic liked it too. I did a story on Nebraska for the Geographic many years ago. Rodeo was said to be invented by Buffalo Bill in the state. It's not enough to shoot the action. You go into the bar the night before and you say, has anybody been scarred or had their teeth kicked out by a horse? And people are pulling their false teeth out. It's good. It's all right. Or it could be the guy dusting the stuffed sheep in the back of the Cabela's store. It doesn't matter. What I like now also, it's been 20 years since I did that story. I wanted to do twin farm kids somewhere, just because twins make easier pictures if you're trying to make something interesting out of wheat harvest, say. So these guys were in a bar in Oxford, Nebraska, and 20 years ago this ran in the magazine as a double truck or 2-page spread. And my bosses called me last fall and they said, we're doing an issue devoted to food. Do you think you can find these guys and rephotograph them 20 years later, nearly till the day? And I said, well, no, they're probably both dead. Look at what they eat. They probably, there's no way. And so I called this little bar in Oxford, Nebraska, and I drove down there, and they're sitting right there in the same spot. Same thing. Yes. Turns out grease is a preservative. I didn't know that. So, when Geographic over the years has had me do stories on state, I've done stories on state fairs. This was when the Nebraska State Fair was here in Lincoln. This guy would jump 3 times a day off this tower into an 8-foot tank of water and never even touch the bottom. He says if you land wrong, you break every bone up to your pelvis. Well, that's not good. Went to the Iowa State Fair. Eileen Burke told me I needed to go to the Iowa State Fair, and so I went. That's her favorite place. Iowa was actually a great state fair. They had a lot of weird contests, like the Guinness Record Corn Dog Chomp. That was the first thing I saw. They had a very creepy contest called the Mother-Daughter Look-alike Contest. Very creepy, but in kind of a good way. And they had a hypnotist act to finish the day out every day. And then I drove all night to go to the Indiana State Fair for the cockroach tractor pull. It was a fun one. The Texas State Fair was pretty entertaining. That's the Midway Barker, and he's singing All of Me, Why Not Take All of Me there. And that, my friend Clark figured out how that's done. It's a mirror illusion. The guy's 6'4" and standing up. You can be right next to him. What the nicest thing is that I'm able to email pictures home to my toughest critic, who is my wife, Kathy. And I emailed pictures from that day, and I said, I think I've got one. I think I got one that'll run in the magazine. What do you think? And she said, I think you would take advantage of any poor handicapped person to get ahead. Just to get ahead. Make a name for yourself, Joel. I said, he's 6'4" and he's standing up. And she says, I still think you'd take advantage of him if you could. I finished up that assignment at the Minnesota State Fair. There's the judge picking out the winning dairy cow. And at that moment, I'm up in the rafters of this amphitheater, this big arena at the Minnesota State Fair. And my boss at the Geographic is riding me. Why aren't the pictures better? Why can't you do better? Why aren't the pictures better? And I'm like, I think I'm shooting a good one right now, Elizabeth. She says, yeah, I'll be the judge of that. So it's a tough place to work. They're tough, they're fair, but it's not for sissies. You have to have a pretty thick skin. This turned out to be my favorite picture from that shoot. It's called the Slingshot Ride, and it's and Clark DeVries helped me figure out basically a harness system for a camera using mechanical fasteners, airplane safety cable, and steel plate and bolts, so that we could mount a camera inside this cage that gets shot 200 feet up in the air, 203 feet, and people pull 4 Gs, I think. It's just a reverse bungee ride. What I really liked about it was there's a live mic in that cage, and the ride owner broadcasts the filth and the obscenities people scream all over. And what it does is it doubles the line, and the guy doubles the price as the line grows. So pretty smart. I mentioned Kathy a couple times. I thought I would introduce you to my family this evening. That's Kathy and I at a little farmstead by Nebraska City that we used to have. My grandmother in the nursing home on her 90th birthday. She was kind of sweet. Daughter Ellen. So Ellen taught me the value of using the camera as a disciplinary tool. You would, if they threw a fit, you would shame or embarrass them by taking their picture when they were being nasty, and she would shape right up. And it worked pretty well. It didn't quite work on my youngest Spencer at first. When he was a very young man, he would throw a lot of fits, and he was great at it. He was an artist working in this type of thing. Be on the road. You'd be in front of the Grand Canyon. It'd be Easter Sunday. That's good. He was a professional. He's a professional. And of course, we do Christmas cards every year that kind of this sense of humor spills out into that as well. This is an early innocent one. It's been 3 weeks. Santa's got to go. That's a very innocent one. A couple years later, we formed a cult down by Rulo. Okay. Got me a little wife there, it looks like. Oh, the next year it was terrible, you guys. We mailed our card out so late. Christmas was completely over by the time we mailed the card out. Bad. Not good. Not good. Not nice. So we thought about the next year we'd get back to more of a traditional card because, this is a little dark, So almost made it home for the holidays is the theme. So for this one, We actually trained the dog to lay down on its side for milk bones, and we put a car upside down using a construction crane right there. We had to Photoshop in the smoke and the flames because we kept having people pull in off the highway wanting to call 911, you know. Then our most recent card, I don't know, you guys be the judge. Stupid autocorrect. I texted Santa but got Satan instead. I don't know. I saved my favorite for last. Always do. This one's a little raunchy, the next one, but you know. I thought of this line one morning when we woke up. We always fight over what to do. I thought of this line. We just can't quit you, old Saint Nicotine. And so I got to tell you a little bit of the backstory. Ellen's friend was over there that night for a sleepover, and we made her wear a gas mask, and she had a cable release and a tripod, so she couldn't screw it up. But we didn't want her mother accusing us of giving her daughter secondhand smoke. And then Kathy hates doing these cards. They all hate doing them. But Kathy went upstairs, and she came back about a half hour later, and she came down. Not only had she dressed herself up like a tramp, but she dressed our daughter up that way too. And it was at that moment, after 30 years of marriage, that I realized I really do love Kathy Sartore. So true, so true. We should talk a little bit. You should never come to one of these talks, Kathy. It's really not good. It just encourages me. So I've mainly been known for doing wildlife work over the years, but I always thought a good picture is a good picture. You shouldn't use wildlife as a crutch or some excuse as to why the picture isn't as interesting as something with people, right? So when I do a story on grizzly bears, the Geographic gives me 8 weeks. That's a typical assignment length. And this is day 2 of the assignment. Those are my boots up the tree. You see the tops of the boots are a little wet. Right? Yours would be too, I think. So the reality is I spent 1 week of my 8 weeks of precious assignment time doing trained bears in California because I was afraid that when I went to the wild, the bears wouldn't subscribe to National Geographic and care who I was with. So I wanted to make sure that I got a good, sound start to the portfolio, because you can get called in at any time on an assignment and they can just kill it and kill your career. You're only as good as your last story. So I spent my first full week out of 8 just photographing trained bears in Hollywood. Bears that are trained to fake maul and fake roar, basically. And then when I went to Alaska, I went to a place where I know I would get pictures of bears. It's Brooks Falls. This is home to the bear paparazzi. There's at least 30,000 photographers a year working off this big patio deck, photographing the same group of 8 or 9 bears that have learned how to catch fish in midair. And when they all go back to their lodge at night and they're having salmon or whatever they're eating back in the lodge and having drinks, I'm out laying along the edge of the stream because I'm afraid I'm going to fail and starve and die in that order. Because literally, if you don't have the world's gold standard coverage of bears, you're done. You're done, and they're not going to take your excuses. There's a line a mile long want to work for them. But every story I do, I discovered this early on, when you have 40 million readers, that's a lot of eyeballs. And maybe you can help improve things a bit for wildlife. That's the whole point behind the photo arc. Maybe instead of just showing pretty pictures of bears, maybe we show the real story of bears, which is they can tolerate us just fine. They love our garbage. Man, would they love to get into what we left on our plates tonight. Easy calories, but a fed bear is a dead bear. So in Alaska, where we've spread out, or Montana, or Idaho, or anywhere in Canada that still has bears, these bears get into trouble. They get a little bit more aggressive. They might get into your bird food, your dog feeder, your cat food, and they get shot and sold as rugs twice a year at the state of Alaska surplus sales. So a little bit of a conservation message there. We can't do a whole story of conservation messages because our readership polls show us that people would just quit buying the magazine. But what I really like, and this is a little too subtle now for our society, which is getting more shallow and more distracted by the day, is our stories where the animals don't really tell you what to think. You know you're told what to think all the time. Politicians tell you what to think. You're cued what to think subliminally with music in movies, or reality shows are really good at this. Some happy music comes on, you know something funny is going to happen. Sinister music must be a bad guy or a bad woman walking into the scene. A little bit of a drum, low drum, that's cueing you to be tense. What do wolves cue you to do? What do wolves cue you to do? Are they bloodthirsty killers? Are they puppies? Are they pets? No, they're just wolves. And this is an issue. If it has any gray area to it at all today, society cannot handle it. They want to be told whether it's friend or foe, good or bad. This is a problem because when we're dealing with energy and climate, it's complicated and it requires us to stop and think. It's really complicated. Take koalas. Again, I do these fun, weird, grabby pictures. I don't even know what this one's about. Some guy goes to schools, I guess, and educates kids in the koala outfit. But I do all these types of pictures to get people into the fact that this is directly tied into this. Why? Well, this is where koalas live in northern Australia. Southern koalas are doing okay, but when I got there, they're living on the golf courses, and when they come down out of the trees, they get hit by cars, or they get bitten clean through the skull by dogs and die. They get infections and die. So this is 1 week's worth of dead koalas, all killed by dogs, including this mother and baby right here. Saved for me in a freezer by a bunch of nurses at a wildlife hospital who were outraged that the government of Australia would not declare this animal as imperiled. Well, this picture runs around the world. We move the needle a little bit. We think the government did declare the animal as imperiled within a couple months of this picture going viral and running around the world. People have been working on getting that animal listed for a long time, so I can't take full credit for it, but I know this didn't hurt. The timing was too coincidental. So that's what I did. That's what I did, if I was to sum it up. And I want to show you how I got into doing what I do now. So Kathy was diagnosed with breast cancer 10 years ago. It was a pretty big tumor, had not spread on her. She got her 10-year all clear 2 weeks ago, which is great. Here she is. And I didn't shoot too many pictures of her at that time. I just didn't because we didn't know how it was going to go, and she didn't like having her picture taken in particular. So, but what it made me do is stop and think about little things like how to be a father, which isn't too little. We had 3 kids at home. The youngest was 2. Little things like how to enjoy life and not just run from one story to the next, looking for the next hot frame, the next way to prove myself, the next way to stay employed, the next way to look good and boost my ego, whatever you want to say. It taught me a lot. And I'm gone more today than I ever was for the Geographic, for working on magazine stories. But hopefully it's with a mission, because when Kathy was home sick, she was either on chemo or radiation for the better part of a year, and I had a lot of time to think about what to do. And I thought about the work of John James Audubon, whose work I loved. He was not just an excellent, exquisite painter who painted these scenes from memory. There were no cameras back then for him to see. There's the passenger pigeon. But he described the behaviors of these animals in ways that nobody else did. And so for the extinct birds you just saw, he is the naturalist for those animals. And he created these spectacular bodies of work of the mammals and the birds of North America, unrivaled completely. I thought of the work of George Catlin, who again devoted his life to a single subject as Audubon did, this time painting Native Americans. He could see their way of life was just going to be slapped around silly by European immigration, by Europeans coming across the continent, right? And he painted scenes for which no cameras could record because it was too early for cameras. Can you imagine killing grizzly bears on horseback with spikes sticking out of swords? Incredible. He saw it himself. Or the Mandan villages not far from here. He recorded all this, devoted his entire life to it. And then right at the tail end, before all the elders had vanished, who still knew the traditional ways, he photographed, Edward Curtis came along and photographed as many different tribes as he could, devoted his entire life, died penniless, got a grant from Rockefeller for $75,000. Rockefeller said you can hire early linguists, you can hire early cinematographers, you can buy all the glass plates you want, do your thing, you can never keep a penny for yourself. And he did not. He died penniless at his daughter's house in Downey, California. Edward Curtis. So these 3 guys, and there have been lots of people devote their entire lives to one thing, and I thought, okay, my career's about half done. I was in my early 40s, what am I going to do? Well, I guess I could do cause and effect. The northern spotted owl can't do well if you cut all the trees. The gopher tortoise doesn't do well if you put a highway through its preserve. The beach mouse has to have some vegetation to live in and eat. Can't take a condo parking lot that's 10 acres. But then, that's too complicated. It just is. So I thought, okay, maybe we'll do a series of birds the way Audubon would have done it. Up close, lit beautifully in the correct habitat. Eastern goldfinch, eastern bluebird, a bird of deep forest, red-headed blackbird, Baltimore oriole, bird of forest edge. Then I thought, you know what? These pictures each took between 40 and 60 hours to do each with remotes, and it's just too much time. It's not going to, we want to save the world here. And so then I thought, okay, I'm with the Atwater's prairie chicken out on this booming ground. Maybe instead of doing this, we do this. We take black velvet and we go to a captive facility and photograph them using lights. Instead of setting camera traps out for ocelot, maybe we set lights up for them and use a trained ocelot at the San Diego Zoo. So I started doing this technique. Once Kathy got better, I went to the Children's Zoo here in Lincoln. That's where I started it. And then wherever I got sent on these other geographic assignments, I would bring black velvet or white backgrounds and some lights and just shoot things as I could. I was in Bioko Island in Equatorial Guinea to photograph primate poaching and the bushmeat trade. And so I brought black velvet and make this guy immortal before he's turned into stew that night. We called the project the Photo Arc eventually, and the first real shoot I did as soon as Kathy got well was on the amphibian decline. Amphibians were already having a terrible time because they take in toxins through their skin. They are very climate dependent. Their eggs have to be either in the water or bathed in clouds all the time to stay wet. They don't have a shell on them like a bird egg. And there's a fungus sweep in the world too that's really cleaning their clocks. And so I did amphibian portraits. Geographic was into that, fortunately. It was a cheap story for them to do at about 4 weeks of field time. And I got to go to some places where I'm seeing the very last of things. This is at a breeding center in Ecuador. There's 9 of this one, and the clock's ticking when you bring an amphibian in. You don't know how old it is. You don't know what triggers it to breed, and you don't know what it eats. You can't cut it open to see what it eats, you know? There are 9 of them left. 5 of this one at this one lab, 3 of this one, 2 of this one. And then this one, this is the very last Rab's fringe-limbed tree frog. Very last one, he's still alive. He's an old frog, 9 years old. He lives in a little terrarium at the Atlanta Botanical Gardens in Atlanta, Georgia. His name's Tuffy because he's outlived all the life expectancy projections. But you know, I show him everywhere I go. And I think, what will the world do when he vanishes? Well, we're going to do it all over again. We're just going to do it again and again and again and again and again until our lives are at risk. That's what we're going to do. We're just going to lament it and do it some more. And this cheeses me off. So in the 10 years that I've been doing the Photo Arc project so far, this has gone extinct, and this, and this, and this, and this. This one is down to a little hot mud puddle near Socorro, New Mexico. How does this happen? How do we let this happen? Well, we can understand. Who cares about that? Truly the least among us. How do we treat the least among us? I don't know. How do we treat the grandest among us? The northern white rhino that was alive at Dvor Králové Zoo in the Czech Republic last summer. I went over there for a PBS project. Sweet as can be, very old, full of cysts that they couldn't really work on because she was too old to anesthetize. And at the end of our hour-long photo shoot, she just kind of laid down and went to sleep. And behaved normally for about 6 days after that. And then one of those cysts burst, and on the 7th day, she died. And now the world has 3 northern white rhinos, all too old to breed. That's how extinction happens. Or maybe this. We wait until the Yangtze giant river turtle is down to 2 individuals in one zoo, including a female, the only female in the world, who's caught up, brought to a bushmeat market, offered for sale as meat. A circus sideshow owner buys her as an adult to display in 1920. 1920. Wow. I'm not much good at math, but that's damn near 100 years ago. When we wait till things get down to the very last, it's really tough. It's really tough. And so the Photo Arc's goal simply is to get people to pay attention to something that matters. Maybe, dare I say, matters more than Kim Kardashian's chest. Can I say that? Get them to pay attention. Well, how do we do it? We put them on black and white backgrounds any way we can. This is at the Suzhou Zoo in China. They let me paint that backspace black. They wouldn't mix pure black paint because it was bad luck. They insisted I put a little red in it, so they put red in it for me. And then this is what your eye sees. This is when we crank the shutter way up, and then we throw a little bit more light onto her back, and there she is. These tigers, extinct in the wild, maybe there's 125 or so in zoos, all in China, all descended from a single female. totally inbred. They've got weird walks and their fur's cowlicked. Will it make it? Well, there's a lot of people out there. We're on our way to 11 billion people. Let's say 10 billion. Let's be conservative. It's a lot of people. And all these people want to live like we do. They compete for space. They compete for resources. And this is going to be a real race. We're going to see a lot of the specialists go away, I'm afraid. The animals that really have a hard time managing us, that have a hard time adapting to new food sources, new temperatures, new humidities, new amounts of rainfalls, or lack of it. But my job is to just get people to stop and know. Most people, to be fair, they do want to help. If they know there's a need, they do want to help. And they have to, but they first have to know about the problem first, don't they? They have to meet these animals and learn about them. So that's where the art comes in. It is a gimmick, folks. It is a gimmick. It's a giant Sears catalog. That's all it is. But as Stalin used to say, when you have enough quantity, it takes on a quality all its own, right? And so we have this massive project. There are about 12 to 13,000 species captive around the world in accredited zoos and aquariums. The goal is to get them all, rare or common. So far, after 10 years, we're nearing 6,000 species, so almost halfway done. But we've gotten a lot of the low-hanging lemurs, so to speak, and we need to go after things that are harder to get that might take a little bit more effort. I leave Friday morning for Cameroon. We're going to go after the only cross-river gorilla in captivity there, and so it's going to take a long time. That's a week to get that one animal. How do the animals like it? Well, some of them help me edit. Some of them like it a lot. Some of them are a little shy. Some of them really hate it. Although this animal was chewing on a banana at the time it was doing that. Some are plotting their escape from my little shooting tent. And some try to kill me. I can prove it.
Not a bashful bird. Not a bashful bird at all. Oh man, this is one of those birds that's going to try to blind me.
I was asking about your lens.
Yeah, okay. Here we go. This is going to be one of those things where I'm back here. And we're distracting in the back of the box. Ow! Man, can he bite? Can he bite? Holy cow.
Yeah, look how big that is.
There
There you go, good.
This is a $6,000 camera. Do you like this bird, Shannon?
Yes, it's fantastic. Raja. Look at his beautiful eyelashes. Yes, he is glorious.
Got it. Nice. All right, done.
Rebecca Wright edited that together. She cuts a lot of video for us. So, you know, what I'm amazed at always is when I'm in front of these animals, I see great beauty and intelligence. I see creatures that, frankly, no matter what they can do for us, they deserve to live. They really do. I mean, we came on this earth with all these species. We need them. Just as you wouldn't fly across the ocean on an airliner that's losing rivets slowly out of the wings, I don't think you want to live on a planet where you lose the bees and the flies, for example, that pollinate your fruits and vegetables. Or where you lose the rainforests that regulate the amount of rainfall we get here in Nebraska. That's catastrophic. That's going to cause millions of people to starve to death. The poor people will go first. Having money like we all do, that gives us the privilege of dying last. But truly, most of the world's crops are not irrigated, they're dry land. And when we lose the cycle of rain that allows farmers to grow things in the soils where they know how to produce food, this is an issue. So to me, it's not just about all these animals, it's about us, truly. We can't lose half of everything and think that we'll be okay. It doesn't work that way. Now you notice of all the pictures tonight, there are no chimps. Here's why there are no chimps.
What do you think? They're pretty good. I do so. They're pretty strong. I think they can rip your death goes, right?
Exactly. If you don't get to death first, it'll get you to death first.
So now, doesn't this look nice? Doesn't this look nice? Perfect. It's perfect for chimps. How long will that last? 60 seconds?
I don't like chimps that much. I really don't like chimps. You know, there is good news. There is lots of good news, actually. When we humans find out about species in trouble, we care and we rush to save them, especially if they're cute or charismatic. Look at this, the whooping crane, the California condor, the Mexican gray wolf, black-footed ferret, even a marmot in Vancouver. All these animals got down to fewer than 24 individuals, and they're all stable now. I can't say they're completely out of the woods, but they're not going extinct anytime soon because people cared. People like Don Butler. This is a guy that has a pheasant rearing facility in his backyard in Clinton, North Carolina. And as I'm there, he's seeing pictures of his birds coming up on the back of my camera. We put them in these shooting tents, and they're in there. They're just kind of chilling. And he's saying, I'm so glad you're here. There are no good pictures of this one. There are no good pictures of this one. There are no good pictures. I'm like, what do you mean? He says, we use Gould's drawings to speciate these things out. There aren't any good photographs of these animals. I've got every picture ever been taken. I have books. I have a library full of pheasant books. I'm thinking, holy cow, these things look like Vegas showgirls. How can that be? And what it really stresses to me is the need for a project like this, because there's nobody photographing mice or rats or snails or slugs or toads or salamanders or anything, really. Polar bears and tigers and elephants and rhinos, sure. But the rest of it, nobody's got a clue. The photographic record of extinct animals is pathetically thin. How about Thilo Nadler? Here's a German expat that went to Vietnam 25 years ago as an electronics repairman, doing air conditioning systems basically, but he saw constantly, he would see young baby primates that were trying to be smuggled in and out of Vietnam into China, and the government didn't know what to do with them. They just euthanized all these baby monkeys because they didn't know what to do with them. So he started this primate rescue center, and this one guy who knows he'll never live long enough to see any of these primates released back into the wild because there's too many problems in the jungle, too many people with guns. This one guy is doing this. I love this. I love this. An old guy planting a fruit tree. He knows he'll never take a single bite of any apple off that tree. He does it because it's the right thing to do. Or Mike Lubbock at Sylvan Heights, single-handedly helps save the pink-eared duck and other species. He does it just because it's his thing, that's it. Or Don Wolf. Here's a guy based out of Bartlesville, Oklahoma, who studies the impact of wind power on prairie chickens. Talk about a thankless job out in the howling wind. How do you argue against wind power in an area where they are broke, dead broke? And finally, here comes their salvation. You can stay on the ranch. You don't have to sell it for taxes. But you may drive a species to extinction of prairie chicken. Try selling that to a rancher. That's all that guy does. Talk about a tough, thankless job. Or this lady, Sandra Sneckenberger, who saves beach mice, or tries to. Beach mice live in the most valuable real estate in the world in Florida. That's her job. That's all she does. She wouldn't think of doing anything else. You know how many doors she's had slammed in her face? I love this stuff. This is the stuff, right? What I do is nothing compared to these people. This is Pat Rakes and J.R. Shute. All they've saved for years is streamfish, little minnows basically. Or Brian Gratwick of the Smithsonian. He's single-handedly, he and his crew have brought in several species of this Atelopus genus or harlequin frog. They're saving it in their lab in Panama until they can figure out how to handle the fungus that's sweeping through there. Otherwise, those species would all be gone by now. Or Jack Rudlow, a guy out of Panacea, Florida. All he does is try to teach school kids about endangered marine creatures, small things, jellyfish, invertebrates, rays, and skates. Or this guy that taught me, he's a mycologist, studies mussels, taught me that what West Virginia and Virginia are washing into their streams, the sediments off coal are completely smothering and killing all the mussels. But you don't have to go all over the place. You can look right here in Lincoln. Steve Spomer, an entomologist out on East Campus. Here's a guy that on his own has gone out and done the tiger beetle surveys for years. Quiet giants all, heroes all to me at least. How are the pictures used? Well, we give these pictures away free to every zoo and aquarium we work at. We just give them away. It's a terrible marketing plan. Pictures run on the covers of annual reports. They run on zoo websites. Zoos can do with them whatever they want. They're in anti-extinction campaigns. They're on the fronts of trolley cars in Australia. They run all over the place. The I Am Not a Trinket campaign you might have seen at airports. That's a photo arc elephant. Houston Zoo's been a big supporter, and as has Ann Hubbard, who is in this room somewhere. Everything from admission tickets to the sides of buildings. So I guess one of the things I wonder this all the time. Will we get people to care? The fact of the matter is, 75% of what you're seeing here, maybe 80%, can be saved, but we have to save tracts of habitat so these animals aren't dependent on zoos to bring them in. Zoos are really the arcs now, but they can only save about, 1,000 species. There's millions and millions of described species. So we are really, really counting on the fact that people will care, but they have to know about it. It doesn't take everybody. About 20% of the population is what it takes to really flip the population and get them to go along with an issue. That's a big thing. And it's encouraging to see the way a lot of things have happened in this country recently, just in terms of getting people to care. Gay rights. All of a sudden, after years and years and years, there it goes. There it goes. So we can see that it's possible to reach a tipping point. But we have to make these things interesting and fun. That's why I've reduced this to the lowest common denominator. Just look these animals in the eye. Interesting and fun. If we try to shame people into it, guilt them into it, make them sad, no way. They'll just click to something else. They'll click back to living with the Kardashians in a heartbeat, right? So we are starting to get traction, which is a good thing. This is a clip from Racing Extinction, which is a documentary film on extinction that's come out. Luis Hoyos, the filmmaker, is basically putting these animals on the sides of buildings around the world, which really gets us a lot of traction. That's kind of nice.
In 200 years, people will look back on this particular period and say to themselves, how did those people at that time just allow all these amazing creatures to vanish? But it would be very little use in me or anybody else exerting all this energy to save the wild places if people are not being educated into being better stewards than we've been. If we all lose hope, there is no hope. Without hope, people fall into apathy. There's still a lot left that's worth fighting for.
You know, one of the things I'm most proud of is that Becca Wright in my office cut those together from piles of video. I mean, she cuts all that stuff together herself. So that pretty much concludes it. I would just like to sum up with this, and if we have time for questions, that's great. If we don't, that's fine too. But I would just like to sum up with this. I mean, a lot of us, especially young kids in the room, they don't know what they want to do. They don't know what they're going to, you know, what am I going to do? The world's a big place. You don't have to save the whole world. Just save what's in your backyard. It doesn't have to be the environment. It could be a social issue. There's a lot of issues with hunger in our town. There's a lot of issues with homelessness. There are great things that you can do with your life. I would just encourage you to not worry about money so much. It is the root of all evil in a way, and it is really distracting. If you do what you love, you'll be great at it, and if you're great at it, you will make plenty of money. You know, you really will. So I went to school with several roommates, and the ones that really their top priority was getting rich, they're all miserable. And the couple of us who who didn't worry about it as much, well, we're not as miserable. So, guys, thank you for your attention, and if anybody has any questions, I'm happy to answer a few, if you have any questions. Oh, the other thing is, like us on Instagram, right, Ellen? Or no, follow us on Instagram, like us on Facebook.
There you go.
Yeah, the whole social media thing, that's the coin of the realm these days.
Can you talk about how we can access purchasing these prints?
You bet. Thank you so much for asking that. How can you purchase these? JoelSartore.com. We sell everything that I own the rights to everything I've ever shot, so we can make prints and sell them. And I'm sure the Millers will be happy to print those up for us real big. Right? Yes.
How did you photograph or show the tiger and the other animals on the tall building?
How did I photograph them? Well, you know, I didn't even go to the Empire State Building thing. I was in, we were in the Czech Republic photographing that rhino, right? No choice. No choice. That rhino was really near the end. So I photographed the Vatican. We did the Vatican stuff. My son Cole ran video, and I shot stills. But you know, in terms of putting the animals on the buildings, that's $1 million worth of high intensity lamp towers, basically, of projectors like this. But they're each about half the size of a Volkswagen, and they take generator trucks, and they're creating a vortex around them because they're taking in so much wind to cool the bulbs. They're $1 million shows, these shows. And they're scripted, and they're usually about an hour long, and that's all Luis Cejoyos and a team from Digital Obscura, which does these shows. They're massive, expensive shows. We just provide the raw material for about a quarter of them. They show lots of work, but of course, we're not showing you the other work. We're just showing you photo artwork. Yeah. Yes. Yes, sir. You guys can all hear him, right?
How can you be a National Geographic photographer?
How do you be a National Geographic photographer? All of us are type A, which you probably don't know about that yet. Got all your life for that. Type A is just the type of person who always did his homework before he'd go outside and play and never had his mother have to tell him to. Just really, it's no fun. It's no fun to live that way. Geographic photographers come from all walks of life, from all over the world, but we're all type A because there's no boss. So we are all very driven because at the end of the assignment, we are given a test. Someday when you're in school, perhaps in this very room, you will be given one test that counts for the entire grade for the entire course, one written essay. And that's exactly what it is, but it's a visual essay at the Geographic. And they either do this at the end of the show when the lights come up, or they feed you to the lions. That is National Geographic.